It's quite odd, but the question is, what's actually happening behind the scenes? The claim that the gold totals are frequently exaggerated for dramatic effect is among the most persistent rumors. Some viewers believe that the final numbers are occasionally manipulated to make the stakes appear bigger, even though the show painstakingly records the weighing and measuring of the gold. This idea is supported by the fact that the show's main goal is to entertain viewers, and a season that breaks records makes for a more interesting narrative. The lost footage hypotheses are what truly raise a lot of concerns. Hints of disputes and incidents that never aired have surfaced over the years. According to some admirers, the secret to comprehending the real dynamics between the miners lies in these deleted scenes. They hypothesize that the producers meticulously select the story, giving a particular version of events, while excluding information that could complicate the plot or diminish the sympathy of particular characters. A discussion over ethics and loyalty in the high-stakes industry of gold mining was also spurred by the Chris Doumit incident. While some supporters felt that Chris had a duty to stay with Parker because he had given him an opportunity, others contended that he had good reason to leave a poisonous workplace. Beyond the broadcast, this argument sparked conversations about striking a balance between one's personal and professional responsibilities. It may surprise you to learn that Chris Doumit's exit is just one of the show's historic betrayals. In other cases, crew members have broken alliances or switched sides, frequently with disastrous results. Whether genuine or staged, these betrayals have emerged as a recurrent element in the program, enhancing the already gripping world of gold mining with layers of mystery and tension. What is the true value of loyalty? Does remaining with a team mean paying a personal price? Or is it loyalty to your own health? Chris made his own decision. He chose the stability of a smaller, more humane business over the safety of a gold mining empire. His silent departure sparked a heated discussion and permanently altered the show's terrain. It was a potent reminder that sometimes the most valuable thing you can find in the pursuit of gold is motivation to keep going. From day one, life aboard Rick Ness's crew was different. The pace of everything slowed. It wasn't laziness that caused this. It was as a result of the careful and purposeful labor. Parker's thinking shifted from a frenzied activity to a serene focus. Even while the job was still difficult and the days were still long, there was still time to plan, reflect, and relax. Chris didn't have to run between 3 separate locations anymore. One wash plant was all that needed to be managed. At the end of the day, there was only one cleanup to do. The staff was not overworked, and the machines weren't enormous monsters. A tiny, close-knit group of people were working together to unearth gold, and, more significantly, to support one another. Rick was a boss unlike any other. He didn't manage from a distance or hide behind production charts. He was there with his workers, digging in the dirt. He would make a joke, inquire about someone's well-being, and pay attention to their response. Chris valued that presence, and the sense of being treated like a person rather than simply a payroll figure, more than a larger salary. This new life was obviously not a dream come true. Parker's empire had backup resources and a huge budget, while Rick's little business lacked both. There wasn't a group of mechanics on hand to fix a broken machine within an hour. They had to do everything themselves, frequently using discarded components and their own creativity. There was a far greater financial danger. A poor week could endanger the season as a whole. It was never easy, and gold remained gold. Chris, however, hadn't quit Parker's group in search of a simpler position. He departed because the burden of the obligation had grown too great, and the din of the ongoing pressure had been too loud. He didn't discover an escape from labor with Rick. It allowed him to continue doing the work he loved without breaking. It's pretty weird, but what's actually happening? You won't believe it. Behind the scenes, the Chris Doumit incident sparked a plethora of fan hypotheses. The Klondike conspiracy, which contends that the producers purposefully created drama to increase ratings, is among the most well-known. According to some fans, Parker's unrelenting quest for records and his seeming disregard for Chris's burnout were staged, or at the very least greatly exaggerated, for the cameras. They draw attention to the fact that reality TV is rarely authentic, and that the show's high-stress atmosphere is intended to incite conflict. The return of Rick Ness is the subject of another theory. His reappearance wasn't totally natural, according to several spectators. They imply that by setting erstwhile comrades against one another, the producers saw a chance to develop an engaging plot. Some fans think that Rick's hiring of Chris was planned, at least in part, to intensify the drama. And the historic betrayal, as it's commonly referred to online, became a major plot point. The support request was viewed as a minor issue in a big, effective machine. Chris never had a backup. It was a clear and loud statement. Reaching the next record-breaking figure was more essential than his health. The choice to depart was not made in a moment of rage. In the quiet of those long rides and lonely evenings, it grew. Chris began to consider the wider picture. He reflected on the almost 10 years he had worked, the devotion he had shown, the family occasions he had missed, and the physical toll the job had taken on his body, and he had a horrible epiphany. He was still standing there by himself, bearing the burden of 3 operations, regardless of how much he donated or how hard he worked. In the meantime, a well-known face was returning. Parker's previous foreman, Ness, had experienced a challenging year. Many Klondike residents believed his career was gone, since he had taken a leave of absence from mining to attend to personal matters. However, Rick came back. He was attempting to start again and was thinner and more focused. He had no intention of establishing an empire. All he wanted was a successful, controllable intellect. He required a trustworthy team, individuals who were knowledgeable about the industry and remained composed under duress. Chris Doumit was just what he needed. It only required one exchange of words. There was no spectacular bargaining, no secret meeting. Rick probably just reached out, since he knew how much strain Chris was under. He was unable to provide Parker with the same amount of money. Neither the wealthiest ground nor the largest machines belonged to him. However, he provided something much more worthwhile: balance, respect, and breathing room. He proposed a collaboration. Most likely, he stated something straightforward like, "I need your help. I can't do this alone. We'll work as a small team and support one another." The assurance that someone would be there for him was crucial for a man who felt alone. The actual departure was as discreet and polished as Chris. No yelling match took place. There were no cameras to record a spectacular blowout. He just packed his things, finished his work, and walked out. He drove towards something fresh, away from the mine site where he had lived for 10 years. The shock of hearing the news was profound. Fans were incredulous. The response on social media was exploding. Some accused him of betraying the guy who made him famous, and of becoming a traitor. Others encouraged him, realizing that one can only handle so much. But one thing was universally acknowledged. It was the season's most surprising move. It seemed like a boundary had been crossed, and Parker's crew was severely lacking in spirit. A different type of wealth, in addition to competence. The generators are already blazing before the sun has even risen. After grabbing a short cup of coffee, he steps outside into the chilly morning air. Big Red, the major wash plant, is his first destination. The drive itself is difficult, with the truck rattling on a muddy, rutted road. The night shift has barely completed their run when he arrives at the factory. With 12 hours of material, the mats and cell boxes are heavy. He starts the meticulous cleanliness procedure by dragging the bulky mats, cleaning the concentrate, and scrubbing it across the shaker table. His exquisite movements are the result of years of practice. He is aware that a single error could result in lost gold, worth thousands of dollars. His radio is a continual source of stress when he's working. "Have you got a copy, Chris?" A crack of voice. Over at Slucifer, we're almost prepared for a cleanup. 5 miles away is the second wash facility. His thoughts are already racing as he answers the call. He has a few more hours to work here. He logs the weight, secures the gold, and gets back in his truck after cleaning up at Big Red. No time for a proper lunch. He eats a sandwich while driving, having to watch out not to drop his drink because the truck bounces so much. The process begins anew when he gets to Slucifer. Another lengthy session at the shaker table, another pair of mats, and another wash. There's an issue this time. Water is spilling all over the floor due to a leaking water line that is attached to the distribution box. It poses a risk to safety and has the potential to harm the apparatus. He must dial in, wait for a mechanic, and attempt to resolve the problem. He is now considerably farther behind schedule as a result of the delay. Even though the sun is beginning to set by the time he finishes, his day is far from over. Even further away, at an exploratory cut, the third smaller plant is also prepared. His body hurts and his head is numb from tiredness as he climbs back into his truck. The headlights pierce the dust as he drives through the twilight. Under the bright glare of portable work lights, he completes the third and last cleanup. When he's finished, it's late at night. His eyes drooping, he drives back to the camp. He is aware that he must get up in a few hours to repeat the process. There was more than one horrible day. This was daily. Silently, the breaking point occurred. Chris sought for assistance after realizing that he couldn't keep up this pace. "I can't be in 3 places at once," he explained. He required someone to share the workload, another pair of skilled hands. Parker, however, seemed to be oblivious to the human cost of his desire because he was so focused on his spreadsheets and well-established objectives. The operation was functioning from Parker's vantage point. The figures were favorable. The gold was on its way. Chris earned his spot over the years, through seasons that broke records and heartbreaking defeats. Parker had him as his rock. He never batted an eyelid when things became messy. Nobody could have predicted that he would ever go. Parker's ambition increased along with his accomplishment. The tempo accelerated, the risks increased, and the goals grew larger. Simply enjoying a nice season was no longer sufficient. Each year had to surpass the previous one. It has to be a new record every season. The fundamental essence of the operation was altered by this need for more. No longer was a single team working a single cut. It developed into a huge industrial-scale business. The choice to simultaneously operate 3 distinct wash facilities was the most significant modification. It made sense on paper. More plants allowed for the washing of more dirt, which in turn allowed for the discovery of more gold. However, it turned out to be a logistical headache. These were not adjacent wash plants. They were far separated by difficult, meandering dirt roads, frequently kilometers apart. It's possible that one plant is thriving at the main cut, another is situated at a smaller exploration location, and a third is pushing through a completely different kind of terrain. The constant strain of the Yukon clock made it difficult to manage 3 separate enterprises at once. No one is spared from the frost, and every hour of every day was a mad dash to get as much gold as possible from the ground before winter closed the door. Not only do the equipment get stressed at this speed, the people who manage them get worn out by it. An atmosphere of perpetual pressure is produced by the 247s type of labor, the never-ending procession of rock trucks, and the continuous noise of the motors. Chris Doumit was standing right in the middle of this hurricane. Once focused and manageable, his job became incredibly complex. Although he was still in charge of the gold room, he was now dealing with more than just one plant's pay dirt. All 3 were his responsibility. This meant that there would be 3 times as many cleanups, 3 times as much delicate equipment to handle, 3 times as much labor-intensive effort to separate gold from black sand, and most significantly, 3 times as much pressure. The radio would spark to life with a call from another location, as soon as he finished cleaning up at one. Every load was waiting, every pour had to be done, and every count had to be done. No pause occurred. Time to catch his breath was not an option. No one was there to assist him in bearing the enormous burden of his new duties. Chris lowered his head and attempted to push through it, as he always did. He worked as a professional. However, a relentless pounding river can erode even the toughest rock, and the fissures were starting to emerge. A day in the life of someone who is burned out. Consider what Chris's typical day might have been like at this period. Chris Doumit was Parker Schnabel's most trusted man until he subtly left to join Rick Ness. That's 337.45, which is 4 times what we gained in the Klondike. It was achieved through loyalty, pain, and patience. Nobody anticipated it, and when he did, it felt more like a dagger in the back than a transfer. The foundation of a mining empire. You have to know who Chris Doumit was to the organization in order to comprehend why his departure felt like such a profound cut. He wasn't merely a worker. He was a character in the first narrative. The irony is that Chris was never intended to work as a gold miner. In the first season of the show, he happened to stumble upon it. The Todd Hoffman crew had engaged him as a carpenter to construct a cabin. Instead of sleigh boxes and pay dirt, he was skilled with wood and nails. However, things can alter quickly in the hectic business of gold mining. Chris didn't hesitate when another crew member didn't arrive for work. Setting down his hammer, he grabbed a shovel and moved inside the opening. He didn't turn around. However, none could have predicted that the same man who once showed there to save a crew would later walk away and destroy another. Along with the Hoffman crew, he experienced the roller coaster and learned the ropes mostly by making mistakes. He witnessed personally how poor choices and unfulfilled commitments may cause a team to disintegrate. I discovered ways to get around or prevent these issues. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 49. It's there. We are older than 30. Chris, who is renowned for his unwavering work ethic and straightforward demeanor, ended up landing with Parker Schnabel when that team ultimately broke down. Parker was a young, highly motivated teenager, attempting to establish himself at the moment. It was not just strong backs he required security. He needed trustworthy individuals, and he found his anchor in Chris Doumit. Chris wasn't just given a job by Parker. He assigned him the most significant task on the entire website. He assigned him to oversee the gold room. Not everyone was cut out for this role. The last destination is the gold room. All of the effort, fuel, and hours spent digging in the mud are transformed into tangible, measurable gold there. It calls for extraordinary accuracy, meticulousness, and most importantly, integrity. Chris was ideal for it. He handled the gold with a silent respect, making sure each flake was properly weighed, cleaned, and captured. He developed to become more than just a worker. He was the protector of the objective and the custodian of the prize. He was the quiet focal point of the storm for supporters who watched from home, a man who infused a noisy and disorganized company with a quiet dignity. I believe we need to discuss your spending habits, your ultimate power output. Yes, I am aware of how much of it has spent the past 2 years on the land.